Take it away, BJ Snowden.
WFMU. We have Erwin, Andy, and Lonesome Girl. The music is adventurous and also marvelous. WFMU.
All right. One more example of phase spaces. And an example of discontinuity in this case. So far, the attractors we've looked at have all been pretty continuous and smooth. But where I'm going to end up here will show a discontinuity in phase space. As you all know, I like music. I've played a bunch of soundtracks the first half of the semester. I've been mixing in little bits lately as my editing skills have improved. And a lot of that is inspired by freeform WFMU, Jersey City, New Jersey. And I'm going to use their response to COVID-19 as an example for one of dynamics and of how COVID-19 is provoking changes broadly. All right, so as I said, WFMU is a freeform radio station, 91.1, broadcasting 91.1, also on the internet, WFMU.org. And it was possible for me to leave New York City because they started broadcasting on the internet a very long time ago at this point. And one of the things about WFMU is, well, the thing about WFMU is that disc jockeys are completely unconstrained. They're all volunteers. They're all experts in the music that they play. But it's really about radio, and not just streaming radio, although there is some streaming associated with WFMU. It's about live radio. And so the thing and WFMU has been archiving shows for a decade or more than a decade, a couple of decades. So the thing that is important at WFMU is live shows. And they're archived. So once you have one, it doesn't go away, and they're produced. So that's what at some level, that's what WFMU does. Now, traditionally, these shows are done in a studio. And I think I heard Ken Friedman say that they have something like 50 disc jockeys. That's about right. And studio capacity is more or less constant over time. More or less. It gets upgraded. And it depreciates. But generally these two are roughly the same. Depreciate. With the advent of the internet, however, and with Doug Schulten's move to Pittsburgh, WFMU has been developing remote capacity. And here, it increases through what I'm going to call build out, and it depreciates. Now, through all of this, this is not cheap, and particularly in the internet era. These two things control the production. But also, the other thing that one needs in order to have this and to have these two things, because while they are steady state, there's a roughly steady state, there's a flow through here, is cache. And one of the things that distinguishes WFMU from other entities like it is that cache is, for all intents and purposes, all listener supported. And that listener support generally comes from a spring, and I'm cutting corners here, there's a lot of detail here, but from a marathon in the spring. Now this marathon started right around the time we started worrying about this year. We started worrying about COVID-19, and in fact, some of the major elements of the marathon were canceled as a result of COVID-19. So let's look at how live shows increase over time. I have a couple of arrows that are missing, and I'm trying to decide what to do. Oh, and the cache, of course. So let's finish this up. Cache, of course. Right. So cache determines the amount of cache on hand, determines how studio capacity can be upgraded, and it also determines how remote capacity can be built out. Now, similarly, the build out of remote capacity and the upgrading of studios drains cache. And one of the challenges with WFMU is that this has always been very, there's not a lot of buffer here. Right. So now I think we have all the arrows in place. Now, when COVID-19, so on a typical in typical times, the studio capacity is constant. Studio. And the remote, and higher than the remote capacity. Again, but when COVID-19 came along, and we're not allowed to be in the same room as one another, all of a sudden, essentially, studio capacity, and then production, the ability to produce shows, is something like the sum of those two capacities. So we're going to put production up here. So, when everything's happy and we don't have nanoparticles killing us, things go along like that, and live shows go up at a steady rate. Everything's happy. We're having shows go into the archives, etc. Then sometime in whenever it was, everything got shut down, and so the ability to make this capacity went down to almost, probably went lower than the remote capacity, but we'll for sake of clarity, And the remote capacity continued as it was because it was in, I don't know, DJ's bedrooms and stuff. But because of this, the production of live shows went down. So at this time, the rate of increase of live shows went down. Now, as I said, live shows are what WFMU is all about. So it became imperative that this total capacity go up. And so as a result of a special gift, cash was infused here, build out was increased, and so the remote capacity started to go up while the studio capacity stayed the same. And as a result, live shows started to go up. So that's what happened. Now, let's think about the, I've drawn myself into a corner here. Let's think now about what the attractor, or what phase space for this system might look like. I'm going to leave cash out of it because I'm going to focus on live shows, and cash is not directly related to live shows. It's clear that the interesting parts of this are the remote capacity, the studio capacity, and the ability to produce live shows. So I'm going to call those my state variables. So state variables are studio, remote, and production. So I'm going to get rid of live shows so I have room to draw the phase space. So now we're going to do, this is the first one we're going to do that has 3 dimensions. Oh, going to need a better 3-dimensional plot than that. Let's draw the 2 that are in the plane of the blackboard first, and then we'll put another one back here. And so this is going to be the remote. This is going to be the studio. And this is going to be production. Right. So when we started out, remote capacity was low. So studio capacity was high. So if we do this to get, so that's so we have low on the remote, high on the studio, and we had high on the production. So that's 1. So that's this here. And then all of a sudden, studio capacity was reduced back to way back here. So and as a result, production was cut back. So that's 2. That's here. And now, studio capacity remains low, but remote capacity is being built up out to here, say. And so somewhere in here is 3. All right, so In this phase space, there isn't a continuous function. There are discrete points in phase space that describe the discrete way of WFMU. Now, in fact, there are, as more remote studio capacity comes online, there are points like that. It's not continuous because the remote studios come online one at a time. But there is a series of dots there. So it's a discontinuous attractor. And as social distancing is relaxed, and so studio capacity comes up, there is a limit to live shows on WFMU that has to do with the number of hours in the day. So if social distancing were to be removed, then remote capacity is up here. Now we have excess capacity. And what WFMU does with that excess capacity will be an interesting question. So attractors need not be a continuous function, or they need not be continuous in phase space. They can have discontinuities, such as the point at which the governor of New Jersey said, "Thou shalt not gather in large groups," where the capacity, the studio capacity, went from high to low. This was made possible by a change in the stock here. So an interesting fourth dimension, which I am not even considering trying to draw on the board, would be to include cache as a determinant of the position in phase space. All right, well, I hope you all will, I hope this is helpful, and I encourage you to listen to WFMU.